All right, well, welcome everyone. Happy March. Unfortunately, Melody is a little bit under the weather, so I am not Melody, as you can see in the title here. I'm actually Brittany Peterson, and I'm super excited to be jumping on and connecting this chat for her so she can rest because we all know what this business can do, or just general life and craziness. So I want to let her actually get some much needed resting time. And so I'm going to take the whole call tonight, and we're going to keep it short and simple. So probably just around 30 minutes to be really adherent to everybody else's schedules. If you got things to do, I totally get it, totally understand. So yeah, we're going to get started. I know she loves to start out with a couple of quotes. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here, and we're going to get started with that. So I have two to share with you tonight. There's a couple that I absolutely love that I just heard recently. So the first one is, your dream has to be bigger than your fear, which when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, that relates to like everyday life. Cause I mean, I'm a work from homeschooling mom. I have like 5 titles in one. And so when you go to think of like everything that you do, and if you jump on, just be sure to mute your phones. I know some of them, most of them are, but I'll go ahead and mute you if you need to be. But when you think about everyday life, right? I tried to make sourdough the other day, totally failed at it. And I was like, oh gosh, before I even made it, I was like, what if this goes wrong? And then it totally didn't go terribly wrong, but it did go kind of wrong. And I'm like, I set myself up for failure by thinking that. So I love this quote by Steve Harvey, just saying your dream has to be bigger than your fear. So think of all those positives first, right? That you want to absolutely strive for. And then the second quote that I want to share is, don't stop when you're tired, stop when you're done. I think there's so many times when we can just be like, oh, I feel like I'm so run into the ground, or everything is working against me right now. And you start to just really doubt everything that you're working towards, but then you're like, I'm nowhere near the finish line of what I want to complete, or, finally hit that finish line of. So love those two quotes, and I wanted to share those with you just to start out the night. But the main things that we want to talk about tonight, we're just going to talk about the promotional, because it is a new month. So we're going to talk about the new promotions and product of the month and everything that's new. And then we're going to go into just a testimonial share time, and then finish off with just a really brief topic that I wanted to touch on. So if you guys haven't seen the new promotions, there's basically 3 things that I want to share. The first one is the product of the month. So I don't know if any of you guys have already seen this. I ordered it already because I got excited. I was like, ooh, Palmarosa, similar like rose. I'm like, rose is really expensive, so I totally need to grab this. So the product of the month, if you place that 125 PV order before the 15th, and this is awesome for any of your customers that you have. And what doTERRA has been doing lately that I've noticed is they're throwing out all these really cool products that are different from the mainstream, right? So they're not offering a lot of things that we can buy. They're saying, hey, we want to offer things that we probably can't really sell, but we want you to get your hands on. So this month's oil is Palmarosa. It's known as Indian geranium. It comes in a 5 ml bottle, but it has a rose-like scent. It's a great addition to your collection, just like any oil that we know. But it's really great for natural skin benefits, just like we would see with any geranium, rose, all those floral oils. So definitely get your hands on this one. And if you don't know much about the oil yet, there's tons that you can kind of dive into already on the site. As you can see, you just hop onto doTERRA and you can learn a ton more about the oil. That way, even before you personally get it, like I haven't received it yet, I just had to order it today. So me sharing with my customer base, I had to kind of jump in here to learn exactly what I wanted to share about it. So I definitely recommend going through here to see what you can read and learn about Palmarosa. Order it for yourself as soon as you can so you can experience it, and then share it with your customer base so that they know what they can get their hands on before the 15th. The second promotion that I want to talk about is the discounted product of the month, which is peppermint soft gels. So this one's actually 15% off. So instead of $24 for these soft gels, it's $20.40. And I think there's not tons, like if you've experienced this oil, then you might know a ton more about it, but it's very specific in the way that it was created. So this is actually an enteric coated soft gel, which is intended to make it past your upper digestive system, and it actually makes its way into your lower digestive system. So one of the biggest things when you're looking at those heavier hitter heavier hitting like digestive issues, whether it's Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, a lot of stuff that kind of resonates more in the lower digestive system. Oftentimes, if we take peppermint internally or we're trying to apply it onto our stomach, or even if it's digestin, sometimes it doesn't always do the trick because it just does not reach where it needs to. So doTERRA came out with these enteric coated soft gels that's basically coated, it's almost like, I would describe it like a thicker wax. So it looks a lot thicker than the soft gels are, but it actually makes it through your digestive system and hits all the way where it should. So I get like that longer digestive bloating towards the end of the night if I've indulged too much. That's just me personally, but that's definitely one of the ways that you can see that this is going to be really helpful. So if you haven't experienced the peppermint soft gels, definitely do so while they're discounted, because trust me, you're gonna love them. They work very, very fantastic. You could take them right before you eat a meal, especially if you're like, oh, I know this doesn't normally sit that well with me. You can go ahead and take it, and it's very helpful. Or for traveling, especially, like, don't leave the house without it. And then the last one that I'm going to share with you is actually not a promotional item, but they released a new kit. So if you haven't heard of the Healthy Essentials kit, it hasn't been talked about or promoted a ton because even though it's available, it's currently available as of now, it doesn't have the packaging that they want to have for it yet. So if you do promote this or get it for yourself, just know that it's not going to come packaged beautifully like any of the other kits yet. And that's just because it's so brand new that they just wanted to get it out there for us. So they just went ahead and threw it on the site, but you would receive it just like any other order versus an actual enrollment kit. But if you aren't familiar with this kit, basically when they changed all the enrollment kits recently, there was kind of a big span of where that old Home Essentials kit hit. So the old Home Essentials kit was like a $275 price range, which worked out really well for people not having to make that big jump right into 300s. Maybe some people in their mind, they're like, oh, that's too big of a reach for me, or whatever it might be. So they wanted to add another one, but then change it up from some of the normal oils. So I'm going to make this picture, it doesn't really get that much bigger. I was so stoked to see this kit come out because it includes a lot of the newer oils that we always promote for our customers, but we know are going to be those secondary orders, but especially people that have a lot of anxiety, stress issues. This is an amazing kit for those people that want to get started. And instead of having to start with a kit and then add on a ton of other oils, it's the perfect go-to. Like kind of what that old Aroma Touch kit had more of the emotional side of it. This is a great one for that. So it's going to have all the full-size bottles, but deep blue, has Adaptive, On Guard, Digestin, Breathe, Balance, Copaiba, and then peppermint, lavender, and lemon, which are the staples, right? So super fantastic, all at a $249 price range, and it is available to start with as of now. Just know that if you are promoting it, like I said, with your customers and you want them to get started with it, just give them a heads up and say this is a brand new kit. And so if you're going to get started with it, they don't have it packaged in an actual enrollment kit yet. You'll just receive it like you would any of the future orders that you might place. That way you could just kind of let them know ahead of time that, hey, this is how it's going to show up. This isn't how we normally package those enrollment kits. And then everything's fine from there. But if you weren't aware of this new kit, is an amazing one to get familiar with, to throw into that repertoire of what you offer at the end of the class, especially since there's so many of those emotional, mental health offerings that are in it. So if you guys have questions on those, then feel free to share. Sorry, I saw that there was a chat that popped up. Oh, Patty, yes, freaking awesome. Absolutely. So I wonderfully love this kit option because it's so different than the basic. I think the medicine cabinet one it can go so far, especially for somebody like me as a mom. That one meant the world to me when I first got started, but this one now I can see so many opportunities to get specific individuals started that need that mental health capacity, like benefit right away. So cool. Does anybody have questions on it? You can feel free to throw them into the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment because we want to offer the time tonight to kind of just give a shout out to somebody that's been doing a really awesome job on our team. So on Jenna's team, this girl named Jeanette, I just met her for the first time tonight, but she's fantastic. She's super sweet. She's just kind of like taken charge and gone for it. So we really want to hear from her. And Jeanette, if you want to unmute yourself at this point, I'm going to have you just say hello, introduce yourself, and tell us how long you've been using essential oils and just like a tidbit about yourself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeanette. As Brittany said, I've known Jenna for years, and I didn't know anything about doTERRA. I had no idea doTERRA existed before November. And so what had happened was I was texting with Jenna, and we actually scheduled a play date for our husbands, not the kids. And I went over to the house, and I had seen her oil shelf, and I'm like, hey, what is all this? So she explained it to me. I mean, we ended up, I think I was there for like 8 hours that day because we just had so much fun. And then she told me about the business opportunity, and I've always wanted to do something a little bit more than just my regular 9-to-5 job. And this just seemed like the perfect segue for me to kind of create a plan for myself and for my family. And so I just started in November. It's super fresh.
Awesome. So you mentioned you are working a full-time job, correct? What do you currently do outside of doTERRA?
So I'm a commercial property manager. So I have retail shopping centers and office buildings that I manage. So my day today, for instance, started at 7 o'clock because there was a fire, and I didn't leave until about 7:15 this evening. So
super crazy. So very busy schedule. I think a lot of us can probably relate to that, whether it's like a crazy 12-hour job work schedule or anything outside of that. But I know you kind of shared a little bit about getting started just recently, but what was your main motivation to just getting started with doTERRA?
So the reason I wanted to get started is because I've always thought about an exit strategy for my job. I know that for me, I'm one of those people, like, you diversify your 401k, you should diversify your life too. And I don't feel like having all my eggs in one basket with a job is the perfect opportunity for me or my family, because what I have today may not be here tomorrow. And so always having an opportunity, something like doTERRA, where I could build a business on the side and eventually replace and supplement my income, to be able to pursue this on a full-time basis and have that residual income. I know what residual income means. And for me, it means my future, and not only just for myself, but for my family and for my kids. And so just being able to have that legacy for everybody was really what motivated me to want to do this.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Now, the second question I had kind of ties into that a little bit, but it was just obviously you kind of hit the ground running really quick, which is a fantastic way to get going. But just what made you go for it 100%? Because I know your last month was really incredible. So if you just want to share a little bit about that.
So funny enough, when I got started, I told Jenna, I'm like, I know you want me to commit, but I'm not really going to commit. Like, I can only kind of do this part-time because I have a full-time job. I have 2 kids. My daughter's in Girl Scouts, and I'm going back to school to get my bachelor's. I was like, so don't rely on me to be the one that like really hustles in this business to start off. And then, I don't know, I just started getting involved in it and started just sharing what was going on with the oils with my family and sharing it with like friends and family. And, then Diamond Club came up, and Jenna, she's like, hey, there's this goal. And I'm kind of just an overachiever type of personality. And I'm all like, I got this. And so I just figured, well, why not? Right. Fear totally set in for me, but I let that fear be what motivated me to do this. Because just getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, I feel like was really going to push me. And I figured if I'm too busy now to do it, I'm going to make excuses for myself later. So there's no point in doing that. So I decided to just focus on my 100 names list because I had just started it. Listening to the Lee Shedevy calls really motivated me too. So just working with my friends and family, got a couple team members signed up who've been absolutely incredible. And I'm enjoying running with them on this journey. But just also the push and motivation that Jenna's given me and Melody's given me, just to like, you can do this. It's okay. Like, ask any questions and we'll be here to help you. And I just figured, okay, let's just get this 4 classes booked, whether it's for my team or for myself. There was a lot going on in February, but for me, what I just found to be the most successful was just filling in every single pocket of my spare time with doTERRA and making it intentional. because if I wasn't going to make it intentional, it wasn't going to work. And so that's what I did.
Cool. Well, just a couple more questions. One of the main things, I know you mentioned that you were making your 100 names list, so I'm assuming that you're going through a lot of the Elise Chetevie's approach, because I know I went to the training with Jenna. So what are some of the components or skills that maybe you've learned and what you've seen so far that have really worked for you?
Just calling and texting. Like, so I'll start with a text to some of my girlfriends and be like, hey, how are you? And then like let that go for like a couple of days, and then just reaching out to them via phone and saying, just kind of catching up with them and say like, hey, you know, I don't know if you've seen, but I've been posting stuff on like on Instagram and stuff just about the oils and how it's been working for my family. And I just feel like it's not fair for me to keep this to myself. And I feel like I want to just share it with other people. And they're like, yeah, I've seen that. And so then I'm like, hey, would you be interested in maybe hosting a class for me? Like, I'd love to just give you some samples and just see what you think about them. And I'm really just taking that sample approach with them knowing in the back of their head that the opportunity to host a class.
Sweet. Perfect. And then outside of that, maybe in the last few months, I know you said really November, but it seems like you've ramped up as of recently. Is there anything that you would have changed so far?
A lot of things. I feel like some of the sampling didn't go as I had planned because I didn't get the information. So one of my girlfriends was going to host for me. And so she had the contact information for her friends that she was inviting that I was sampling, but I didn't necessarily have it. So for me to do the follow-up was a little bit tricky because I had to go through her. So just being kind of just upfront about it in the beginning and saying like, hey, I want to sample these people, but I'd also like to get to know them before the class starts. Can we maybe exchange information so that I can reach out to them if you're comfortable with that? And just kind of having more conversation ahead of time with that, I think would really benefit me. And then just focusing on my team, I think a little bit more too, and just making sure that everybody's on the same page. And because I have to get comfortable with that too, because it's still so new. But I think just doing those couple of things, I think would be better for me for March. And those are the goals that I'm setting for myself for March.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome to recognize it. And I want to thank you for sharing on our call tonight. We just love to recognize that, you know, people that are really going for it. And so thank you for sharing, because sometimes it's just great to hear from somebody else. So a round of applause for you, or throw a little kudos in the chat bar for Jeanette. I know, especially me, there's always things that I can look back and be like, oh, what would I have changed? And I think a lot of it's just a learning process as you're going through it. So that's totally normal. And you'll always look at those experiences. I know when Jenna and I, and there's a few other girls that were at the training with Elise Chetevie, she's like, you want to always use those experiences, whatever it is nobody's going to walk into this and have like 100%, like I did everything exactly like I wanted to, and everything went totally positive and great. So it's being able to stop and looking at those moments and saying, okay, how should I maybe approach this different next time? Or what are the learning lessons from it? So I think we can all learn for that. So thank you so much for sharing. So great. Well, as I'm promised, we're going to move right through this call. So we've got about 10 minutes left that we're going to just kind of transition over into a topic time. I want people to share in the chat bar just whether you've started on Elise Chetevie's training and kind of where you're at. I had an intention of where I wanted to get started, but if anybody has specific questions on either where they're at in those trainings and maybe something that they would love more feedback on, or just hearing from other people, then it'd be really helpful to know. Otherwise, I'm just going to go ahead and share what I had planned on sharing. So, which is a huge one, I think, for our team. So we have been doing a ton of sorry, I was just going to go find my screen again. Oh, so we are kind of really heavily focused on the continuing education as far as my team's concerned. I feel like I've been doing doTERRA for over 4.5 years. So when I look at my organization, I know there's a ton of customers that I have, and maybe this isn't so applicable to somebody that might be brand new because they're just focused on getting those new contacts. But if you have been doing doTERRA for a little while, or maybe you were just a bomb at enrolling in the beginning, but then you have a lot of customers that are kind of sitting there and maybe they didn't get those post experiences, right? Like you were amazing at closing them with the kit, but then from there it was like, ooh, we didn't really talk further on like maybe other products that they want to try, or how we go about ordering, or just how to continue educating those customers that we have. Because if you look at the backside of your organization and you go, all right, this is how many people I've enrolled up to this point, but how many of them are actively using doTERRA, right? And if you look at that number ratio and you're like, oh my gosh, you could see where you're kind of like got those bigger holes, and you can take a look at that and go, maybe that has something to do on my part of I should be absolutely be continuing educating customers in my organization. So I want to share a little bit about that. I'm going to also share just more so on if you haven't been using the Elise Chedevy trainings, they're easily found online. You can go right through her website. Otherwise, if you go through Melody's Obsessed with Essentials website, she has everything kind of listed out for you there, so you can easily find it instead of having to go through Elise's site. If you do go through Elise's site, you just have to make a login, and then every time you go to access the mentor calls that she has like, I want to say it's like 60 daily mentor calls, somewhere around there. You can access them through there, and it keeps track of exactly where you are, which is helpful. Otherwise, Melody has them through SoundCloud, so you can just go through right on here and access all of those calls without having to do a login. I know sometimes I'm like, oh, one more thing to remember of how to like access that, right? So she has everything right here on the same tab. So if you do the Back to Basics training, you can find the daily mentor calls, and then the biggest thing, so obviously all the mentor calls are housed in there, but if you scroll down, it talks about the continuing education. So there's a couple notes that I remember taking and learning from Elise herself, because it really hit home, especially for me being in this business so long, of knowing, oh my gosh, am I really pulling the weight of what I need to do for the people that trusted me from the very beginning, and making sure that they feel comfortable with what they're using, know how to use what they bought from me, and then, from there, experience other products that they probably have no idea exist. So the main idea with the continuing education is that you would rotate product classes every 8 weeks. So she is very specific in saying absolutely get a schedule and be really consistent, so your customers, no matter whether they're old customers or new, can immediately get plugged in, and they know exactly when you're going to be having these classes. Now, I understand that having an exact set time for the rest of your life sounds like super daunting and crazy. So what we decided to do was we're going to focus on one 8-week stint. We're going to have that class at the same time every single week and just go through the 8 weeks. If somebody misses it, it's not the end of the world. We're going to have these again, but we might change the day and time to accommodate other people that might be in the area. So that was a huge thing for us. The second thing was just invite and remind existing customers over and over and over again. So I think oftentimes we tend to shy away from always extending out that invitation, because we're like, oh, I sound so pushy, or oh, I'm just annoying the heck out of this person. But in reality, like, you've probably received a lot of these types of texts or touching base from many other people in your life, and sometimes it's just like you get it and you're like, oh, I'll respond and I'll get back to that, and you set your phone down, and then it gets lost in your text messages, and so it just kind of like washes in with everything else, right? So the biggest thing that she said that stuck with me was just like, don't feel like you're hounding somebody. Just be like, I'm offering that. Like, if I don't offer this out to you, I'm doing a disservice. Like, I'm just letting you know, hey, this is still going on. This is when we're having it. We'd love to see you. Or especially if your certain customers, if you're like, oh my gosh, this topic would be great for you. So even if it's like halfway through your continuing education rotation, be like, oh my gosh, you totally need to join us on this one. And maybe if they get that one little taste on a topic that's geared towards them, they're more likely to then be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what these were going to be like. I would love to come to some of the other topics that you would have. So continuing to invite, even if you feel like you're being really like, it can feel aggressive on your end, because you're like, oh, they've never responded, and the last message I sent out was like an invitation to something and they didn't respond. So maybe change it up a little bit by going like, hey, I don't know if you saw that last message. No worries, but I just wanted to let you know this is still going on, and this class actually made me think of you. And just try to personalize it a little bit so they have more intention to maybe respond to what you're asking them about, if you feel like they're kind of ghosting you for a reason. Otherwise, it's likely they're not ghosting you at all. I totally receive tons of emails and texts throughout a day, and I'll set down my phone and completely forget that I was like, oh, I need to respond to this. Like, it's so common, especially in our tech day and age nowadays. It's like really easy to get distracted diluted and washed into something, or like washed away from something. Some of the things that she did recommend for doing continuing education was setting up doing prizes for people that decide to complete the full 8-week course. Maybe it's not in like an exact 8-week rotation, but they end up hitting all 8 over time. And you could do something as simple as offering a vitamin organizer, because likely if people are going to do your continuing education classes, they're going to be taking some of the supplements. If it's not like the LLV, it's definitely some of the other supplements that doTERRA offers. And those are really cheap. That can be as low as $4.50 per person. So it's nothing like extravagant or crazy. Otherwise, you could do like a car diffuser, which can be as low as about $12 a person. So it just really it's up to you with what you might want to offer, but those are definitely options to let people know and encourage your customers and say, hey, I'm offering this entire course. You can graduate at the end of it, and you're going to be so much more knowledgeable on using your essential oils. If you go to these 8 classes, you're going to get a certificate, you're going to get a little prize for me. And people kind of like that, right? They're like, oh, I'm like jumping in on something that I can like feel proud of by the time I'm done. And she even said you can allow people to do these courses twice. I mean, you're going to keep offering them, right? So you're going to get some customers that are always wanting to attend your events. Maybe they love you tons, or maybe they always feel like they learned something new. I know I do every time I attend somebody else's class, and I've taught, I don't even know how many classes at this point, but she said allow them to do it twice if they really want to, and they can earn both prizes that you offer. There's no point in like saying people can't come to the same thing over and over again, because they're always going to learn something new, especially if there's other people there, because a lot of the continuing education classes are geared around learning from other people that are there, hearing the testimonials and ways people are using these essential oils and products, so that they can feel like, oh my gosh, I totally resonate with that. Maybe I didn't resonate with how I heard it before. We're trying to, at least for our team locally here in Costa Mesa, if you're in this area, and if you're in an outside area and you don't have that local support, try to find people that might be within your area. Our team is very large at this point, and so the best way to go about it is obviously not reinventing the wheel every single time you go to do something. But if you kind of have to kick these classes off yourself, then so be it. I mean, at least it's yours and you can claim it. But here locally, we decided to just try to offer it team wide and say, hey, we found a space and anybody's included that's on our team, and we're happy to share that rotation of who's teaching, because I know obviously it can get really tiresome to do something for 8 weeks straight and feel like it's a total load to take on. So what we did was there's 3 of us girls that decided we're going to take this on 8 weeks. We're going to rotate who's teaching, and then maybe if there's a week or 2 here and there that we absolutely can't make it, we know there's at least 2/3 of us that can be there. So that's an idea for you. And we wanted to throw that out. So if you weren't aware of those continuing education classes that are here in Orange County, definitely get involved with those. We're trying to set some other ones up so we can have some for other areas as well. So if you haven't heard of that or want to get involved, definitely reach out to Melody or reach out to your leader, and we'd be happy to try to look into doing that. Some of the, I know there was a chat, and there we go. Some of the locations that they mentioned was being able to utilize, you could utilize libraries, churches, community centers, coffee shops, hotels, chiropractic offices. So if you have any of those hookups in your community, then feel free to go try to partner with those individuals and say, hey, I would love to offer you maybe this product for free, or even if it's just a shared partnership, because they're getting promotion for their business by having people there. So definitely don't shy away from asking different places in your community, especially if you have an inn. A lot of times they love to have groups come in as long as they have the space allowed for that, because then it totally is great marketing for their business that they get for free that they wouldn't have got elsewhere. And I like what Malia said, like, yeah, if they go multiple times, they often, learn from others too with their testimonials. Testimonials are honestly the best selling point, especially if it's not always from us, right? Like, I've shared my testimony hundreds of times. I know I make my girls, Shannon and Patty, share them all the time because they're fantastic. So testimonials are great, especially when it starts coming from other customers, because then instead of them looking at you as the teacher, they're like, oh my gosh, these other people are experiencing these amazing things. What was it that you used? And all of a sudden they perk up and they're like, I absolutely need to buy that. Anyways, A couple tips are just pick a day and time and stay consistent. The main thing with that is if people are going to jump in and be excited about doing continuing education, they're going to want consistency and knowing exactly when it is and not having to be like, okay, where is it going to be this week? What time? It changed, day, whatever. Try to really be consistent. And even if it's just for that 8-week stint, at least for that 8 weeks, be consistent. And then obviously offer online substitutions for anybody that's out of area, which we're already doing. So definitely get plugged into those, whether it's yourself or plugging in you and somebody else that you know would definitely enjoy that that's not currently in our area. So to wrap up, I wanted to show a little bit of just the site. So if you do scroll down, there's basically 8 different topics, and we actually just found out they changed one of the topics that they're offering today, I think, or it was just recently. So you start with your generic class of I have my oils, now what? And then you do nutrition and supplements, which is a great compound to that basics class of like, the first one is like, what do I have and how do I use it? The second one is nutrition and supplements, teaching people why the Lifelong Vitality Pack is so amazing to get started with and why it's so necessary if you want your oils to work to their best capability. After that, toxin-free living. So you're teaching people how do you replace other things that are in your home. And then oils for young and old. There's stress, sleep, and emotions, women's health and hormones, pain management. One of the ones that was older was Symphony of the Cells, and apparently they just switched it over to a skincare regimen. So we actually still have the Symphony of the Cells information up on the website. So I highly recommend if you do access this here. The Symphony of the Cells is amazing protocols that you can teach your customers. If they learn how to do these protocols, they can see amazing leaps and bounds as far as healing in their homes. So I would still use it since we have the access to it. Otherwise, now you kind of have 9 different topics that you can talk about. But the main thing is the entire goal of doing these continuing education classes, and one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the training was the goal of continuing education is to help a customer find 4 or 5 products they'll never want to live without. So obviously we can get people started with kits. That's easy. We could be like, you need these in your home just in case, right? But then beyond that, if you just buy a kit and you just have these oils that are there for when I need them, you know, maybe using a couple of them and not teaching people about any of the other things that are amazing outside of the kits that we offer, then they're not going to order repeatedly and they're not going to give you that residual income that is what doTERRA is created on. So the amazing thing with the continuing education is if you think of like 4 or 5 products you can't live without, right? And I know most of us at this point probably is Lifelong Vitality, but even if I cut Lifelong Vitality out, I know for me, the things I can't live without are the toothpaste and the mouthwash. I can't go a day without those. I absolutely have to have Adaptive now when I sleep at night. I can't live without Digestin to travel with. And I mean, shampoo and conditioner I'm in love with. So if you look at those as my 5 products, I automatically have an over 100 PV LRP order that I'm going to want to set up. And I'm going to be ordering the mouthwash absolutely every month because I'll run out of it otherwise. So if you teach people those 4 or 5 things that they're like, I have to have this, they're going to also order things outside of that. And that is where the residual income comes from. So continuing education is great. I wanted to give an example of just what they do offer. So for every continuing education topic, there's 8, actually 9 now. There's a PDF that you can get. So this is on toxin-free living, or toxic-free living. We're teaching on this coming Sunday. So it kind of talks about, there's a 1-pager on just like exactly how you would teach the class. You kind of expand on everything that's there. And then if you wanted to do them online or even in person, they offer actual presentations that you can go through. So there's a ton of amazing free resources right there that you don't have to try to recreate. Even if it was something where you're like, I don't really have that many people around me, I just want to kind of offer this for a few of my core customers and then anybody that I add on in the future, everything's already created for you and it's here. So the continuing education is absolutely something you need to plug into if it's not something that you're currently trying to capitalize on, because it's where customers are going to see a ton of that value. I'm going to stop the sharing, but since we started it, we've seen so many wish lists created. Customers are getting involved in seeing and experiencing products they never would have seen before. So continuing education is totally where it's at. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. And I went maybe 6 minutes over from what I promised you guys, but that is all I have for you tonight. If you guys do have questions, I'm going to stick around for a few minutes. Otherwise, I want to thank you and thank Jeanette for being here tonight to share her testimonial, but all you guys are rocking it, and I can't wait to see some of you guys soon. So have a good night, guys.